and welcome. This is day one, and today we are going to learn about some of our speakers. And this is 3 days of learning, growing, and empowerment.
So as many of you know, obviously that you signed up, but we're just going to talk a little bit more about what the conference is going to look like. So there's going to be 3 days of learning, growing, and empowerment and hearing from inspiring and successful women in business and STEM. And you'll also have the opportunity to meet a lot of other students from across the country. And so the reason why we started Women in Business Chicago is kind of based on 3 words of inspire, empower, and repeat. We know that the business and STEM fields really lack female representation, and we wanted to make sure that girls have the chance to pursue their passions in the fields.
And this is the team, so Jordana can introduce herself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Jordana Hosman. I'm a high school senior from the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm the co-founder and co-director of Women in Business.
I'm Sydney Hollibow. I'm also from the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm also the co-founder and co-director of Women Mean Business. Okay, and today's schedule. So right now we are going to start our keynote with Kristi. She's on our panel, and then we have at 2:10 Business and Engineering with Karen Ang, and these are gonna be on Google Meets. And then we have Tech and Cloud Computing with Smriti Sharma, and that's also on Google Meets. And we have 2 professional development sessions, LinkedIn and personal branding workshop with Andy Linder, and networking tips workshop with Pavitra Thacker. And these are 50 minutes. So you guys have 10-minute breaks in between to relax. So don't feel you're going to be on your screen all day.
Yeah, and I just wanted to remind everyone about our giveaway. So we are giving away a $50 gift card, and the more sessions that you attend live and ask questions during, you'll get more entries into the raffle to win the gift card. We are also giving away around 25 to 30 budgeting kits. They're exclusive from Money Girls, which is the premier college organization that helps college women kickstart their financial future. So the more that you attend our sessions and ask questions to the speakers, you'll have a higher chance of getting that kit too.
Okay, and if you want updates when each event is starting, text at Women Mean Business Shy, WNB Shy, to 81010. That's the remind number to receive text reminders and updates about sessions. And yeah, so I think we're gonna get started. I'm gonna stop my screen share. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for signing up. We had so many girls who are interested, whether they couldn't make it today or are coming to all sessions. Thank you, everyone, for showing interest. We have over 100 girls sign up, so we're really happy about that. And we're going to get started.
Yeah, we'd really like to give a little virtual round of applause. Welcome Kristi Ross. She's going to be inspiring us for the next 45 minutes.
And feel free to use the Q&A and chat to send us questions that Kristi will answer at the end.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. If you want me to get started, I'm not sure if you want me to have my video on or not. I will be screen sharing, but I think you'll have to start the video from your side though, because it's not allowed. Oh, there I am.
Awesome.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm actually super excited to share a lot with you. And, you know, really more of a huge thank you for all of you guys for sharing part of your Saturday, because that is awesome. It just shows a lot of initiative to give up part of your weekend for this. Okay, so I think what I want to do, what I'm hoping to accomplish and share with you today is who I am and really what my career journey path has been. And what I hope to do is actually have you have 5 takeaways by the end of my speech. So that is my goal in this talk today. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. Give me a second here. Can everybody see my screen okay? All right, awesome. Okay, so first of all, I'll just run through a quick high level of who I am. And I am, as she said, Kristi Ross. I am co-CEO and president of Tasty Trade. And I'll talk a little bit more about Tasty Trade when I walk through my journey. But I'm gonna, what I will tell you right now is Tasty Trade has nothing to do with food and everything to do with finance and tech. So I also co-host a show called Bootstrapping in America. And it's probably one of my favorite parts of the day because I get to interview other CEOs and founders, and I feel like I learn something new every day. I'm happily married, 2 dogs, 3 wonderful girls, ages 14, 17, 21. My pride and joy, certainly I feel blessed, close to each one of them. I grew up in a small town of 14,000 people in Wisconsin. And so if I try to put that in perspective, for anybody, if you take the town of all those people times 4, you could fit them all in Soldier Field. So I grew up in a very small town, played sports, like I feel like every sport across the board, but volleyball, basketball, track, softball, and I am super competitive. I think what I want to do first is share a little story with you, more about mentors and sort of an experience early on before I jump into my presentation. I really had 2 mentors in my life. Didn't even really know or call them mentors at the time, but looking back, I see how they actually set the tone for my motto in life, what I live by today. And that motto is opportunities all around you, but you have to pay attention and you have to grab it. So when I'll go all the way back to my high school years. I ran track, and we were at a track meet, and there were a few people missing. And so I was a sprinter, and I loved my track coach. She also happened to be my volleyball coach. But I loved her, and I just, I wanted to please her any way I could. And so she came up to me and she asked me, she said, hey, this person's out, can you run the 440? Now I normally run the 220. And so this is, double that, and you still have to sprint it. So if any of you are familiar with the 440, it is like the worst race ever because you still have to sprint the whole thing. And it's a quarter mile. So I said, sure, I'll take that risk. I'll try it. I'll step in, I'll run it. And I did it. And I actually won that heat. I won that particular race. But at the end, I was gasping and bent over and like breathing heavy. And I seriously thought I was going to throw up. And my coach comes to me and she pats me on the back, and she's so excited, and she's like, oh my God, you could own this race. And in track, that's a big deal to sort of own a race and be the go-to person. And I'm still bent over, I'm shaking my head, and the coach says, listen, I want you to run the mile relay, which means, again, a quarter mile, and be the anchor, because that same person was missing. And I said, I can't. And she goes, you just did it. It's 90% mental and 10% physical. You're going to be fine in a few minutes. And I said, I can't. I can't. No. And I could barely get those words out, by the way. And so I said no. And she walked away. And sure enough, in a couple minutes, I was fine. I was breathing just fine. And she was right. And so I didn't want to disappoint her. So I ran over to her and said, I'll do it. She goes, too late, missed opportunity. And so for me, that crushed me. And it stuck with me and reminded me that I actually have control. And I have control. And when I want to do something, it's up to me, right? I think the thing that, I think probably the thing to highlight here is that even though something is uncomfortable, at that time. It'll pass. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so I had a choice, I made a choice, and I missed the opportunity. And that was really important to me at the time. So I'm gonna, hopefully you guys can still see my slides. So I am gonna fast forward to my first job out of school. And my first job was in public accounting, and not because I was like, oh my God, I love debits and credits and accounting is my thing. It was more of because I really wanted to be exposed to a lot of different companies because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so it was really good that I just sort of paid attention what I was good at and what I tended to enjoy. So I enjoyed numbers and I was good at it. So I sort of followed that path. So I'll give you another quick story and then I'll dive in deeper here. But when we started when I started at that job, they started us sort of like a class. They started us all together at the same time. It was a large firm, and they spent time training us. And so we were all in this conference room, and they brought the different partners in, the different partners through to talk with us about, their area of expertise. And so one of the partners, his presentation was, he was a great networker. He had an amazing amount of people in his network, people that he knew. And so he brought a lot of money into the firm, and he brought a lot of clients in. And so he was interesting to talk to, sort of the opposite of what typical accountants are, right? Anyway, so he presented on networking and the importance of it. And this was one takeaway that I had at the time was, it is as important who you know as what you know. Because you can know everything in the world, but if you can't connect to the right people, it's not gonna move you forward. And on the flip side, if you know everybody and their brother, but you can't bring something to the table, it's sort of like it's a social group then. So there's really, it's this two-way street. But the one thing that he said too is he goes, okay, no matter where you are, you should always have your antenna up. You should always, it should always be up, whether you're with friends or your clients become your friends and your friends become your clients. And so what that really solidified for me is opportunities everywhere. It's not just at a networking event that you should be networking. You should be networking no matter where you are. You should always try to increase your network and your circle of business associates. So back to my coach. When I put 2 and 2 together with these 2 amazing mentors, it sort of like solidified that motto for me about you have to take action, right? But opportunities all around you. And so keep your antennas up, and then you have the ability to make things happen. So that was really important for me throughout my career. So I talked about being a CPA. I know that's the only first part here on my career path, but one of the things I'll say that within the first 3 years of being out of college, during that time frame, I was exposed to clients that were in the trading industry. Again, I sort of paid attention, and I was like, oh my God, that is the industry I want to be in. The energy and the idea of really truly understanding and being at the mecca center of the financial markets was exciting to me. And so even though I wasn't going to jump in tomorrow, it was something where I said, that is what I have my sights set on. And so one of the things I did then 3 years into my career as a CPA, one of our clients, who was not a trading firm, but one of our clients needed a CFO, so a chief financial officer, which is an executive that oversees all of the money for the company. And so I raised my hand. And it's, looking back now, I mean, what did I know? I wasn't going to be the best CFO ever, right? But I had not the confidence around being the best CFO, but I did have the confidence that I knew I had a work ethic that I could, figure it out, that I would take the time to actually figure it all out. So anyway, so I got the interview, which I was surprised. And that's, here, listen, so I'm going to sound super old to you, but like Amazon didn't exist. So you actually had to go to a bookstore and get a book. And so I did that, and it was like a desktop CFO book. And I researched it, and I read it, and I just learned, what is it that I need to know? And so I prepared for that interview, and I got the job at age 25. And so I took a risk, and I'll say that catapulted my career. That move, that risk I took early on actually helped me later get a CFO position, and at the second largest stock specialist firm on the Chicago Stock Exchange floor, which was in the field I wanted to be in and around exactly what I was hoping to do. And so, so that was exciting for me, and I loved what I did. I got a lot of exposure to also buying and selling companies. And so, the one thing I'll share though is life happens. I was in a job I loved with people I loved, but I had to start to travel a lot. And by that time, I had gotten married, and I started having small kids, and so I had to make a choice between my career and staying home. And listen, I loved my career, and of course loved my children. And so I had to make a compromise. I wasn't going to just stay on one side of the fence or the other. And so my compromise was that I would go get another job that I didn't have to travel as much. And so I made the move to Thinkorswim, which is an online brokerage firm, a trading firm. And I got the job there as the CFO. And it sort of checked the boxes. I didn't have to travel. I still was challenged. This particular company needed a CFO really to prepare them to go public or be bought by a public company. So it was sort of a wonderful next, stepping stone for me. And that's where I met really my current business partner today, Tom Sosnoff. And so we ended up selling that company for $750 million back in 2009. And Tom, who was the founder, and I was the CFO there, so he had an idea for a new company. And he wanted to make finance fun and actionable. And so I was like, oh my God, let's do it. That is something that is not really, that is not commonplace to have finance and fun. It's sort of like an oxymoron. So anyway, so we now have built Tasty Trade, and I'm going to actually show you just sort of some pictures of three of our companies. We have built 7 companies within our company in 9 years. And this is the founding management team. Tom's over there with the long hair, just like me. He's got the beret on. But we work really well together. So people matter. The people you work with, I mean, this is like a family, people that I've been with for literally like 16 years. So, but anyway, so we come from the trading and brokerage industry. And when we started Tasty Trade is actually an online financial media company. And you kind of say, well, what is that? Like, what do you do? And so Tasty Trade, and this is just sort of a picture of some of our products here. So Tasty Trade, we have 50 different shows, all online. We post a lot of our stuff to YouTube, but you can also find it at tastytrade.com. We have a Learn Center. It's all about empowering people like you and me, self-directed investors, people that want to go in and maybe trade a share of stock. They want to buy a share of stock or learn how to trade options or derivatives and. So we try to make it fun. We try to make it real. But a couple years into that, we said, you know what? We're doing all these shows. We want to actually display what this trade looks like, what this investment looks like. And so one of the next companies we built is Tasty Works. So it's another brokerage firm, the same industry we were in before, but we wanted to make it more visual. And so we created Tasty Works. And it's one of those things where it's sometimes, again, you pay attention to sort of the needs of your customers or what you want to do. And it's sort of that opportunity. It was an opportunity to sort of take this company to the next level. So we built our own technology. And then, and this is actually just a display of all of the different ways that you can watch our content. It was worth showing, just easily accessible from a number of different places. But this is one of our other products called Dough. So we had Tastyworks, which is a brokerage firm. We also have Dough, which is called, which is also a brokerage firm. And I'm not sure if you have heard of Robinhood or not, but it's basically a mobile trading app that you can buy, you know, 1 share of stock, 100 share of stocks, whatever you want to do. This is sort of a competitor to that. But one of the things that Dough does is it also curates content for you that is, you know, it really sort of simplifies trading as well as the content experience around that. One of the things I love, one of the curated pieces of information or pieces of content is around female-run companies, publicly traded female-run companies. And so, not sure if you know this, but if you look at all of the public companies in the S&P 500, there is only 5% that are female CEOs. The rest are male. And so 1 out of 20 is female. I want to change that statistic. It is something that is so important to me when you start to look deeper and you look at that 5% of those companies actually perform better. And so there's a lot to be said behind that, but I'll save that for another presentation. Okay, so one of the things worth sharing with you, this is a slide about trading and investing. And I think the thing that this shows is that trading and investing is not just for your mom and dad or for somebody who's older. This is something that shows that really when you start to look at active accounts by generation, you're looking at baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, and you guys are the next ones. You have basically Gen Z coming down the pipeline. We already have some Gen Z in our trading platforms today, especially Dough. But the next box, okay, over on the right, this is upsetting to me. There's only 12% female, and there's 88% that are male that are trading. Now, the reason I highlight this is because now with technology today, there is the ability more than ever that the playing field is level. And what that means is nobody is going to actually discriminate against you because you're female. You are going to get the same treatment that anybody else will online trading, because online trading knows no gender. It is literally a level playing field. So I'm hoping that the orange over there on the right, which represents the females, I'm hoping that is 50-50 in years to come. So, and hopefully your generation makes that happen. Okay, so one of the things that I wanna do, and I'm hoping that, I don't wanna run out of time here, is I wanna make sure that I sort of cover 5 takeaways that I think would be really helpful, that even if you don't remember all 5, even if you walk away from here today and you only remember one of them, that to me is something that I think is going to help you throughout your whole career. Any one of these will. And so the first one, of course, is opportunities all around you. Grab it. That one I constantly say, I say to my girls at home too. And then the next one is I'm actually going to run through sort of the next 3 over these next few slides. And it's going to be around information. It's going to be around taking risks, which I've already talked about a little bit. And of course, confidence. And so I'll start with the first one, which is around information. And when you look at information, information is power, hands down. And so when you look at communicating any information, what's important? Using your voice, making sure that you have a voice. And again, that's got to come from you. That's got to come from within. So if you are in a meeting if you are somewhere that you have the ability to sort of come in and have a voice, if you don't know what to say, just ask a question. Just come up with some question, anything. And the reason is because it shows you're interested, and it makes you sort of top of mind. But it shows that you're interested. I'll share this with you, and this may sound goofy, but I'll tell you, when I met my husband, he's from South Africa. He was living in Colorado, and I had gone on a hiking, biking, rafting trip with my girlfriend to Colorado. And when I met him, he asked more questions about me. He was just, it seemed like he was so interested in me. And I was like, oh, like, I really like this guy. He likes me. And so I married him. Okay. And what I come to find later is that he's just an inquisitive guy. He like asks everybody questions, but I am happily married for over 25 years. But the little takeaway there was just that if you ask a question, if you seem interested, it means you want to be part of whatever is going on. And so, also share your opinion. If you have an opinion about something, whether it's contradictory to what everybody's saying or not, it's okay, as long as it's, you know, put out there professionally. But sharing your opinion, and how do you form an opinion if you don't have that experience behind you? What you do is you do your homework, right? If you know what you're going to be talking about or what you're going to be hearing about, go ahead, do your homework. I mean, information is so accessible today compared to decades ago. It's right there at your fingertips on your phone. You can look up anything, even if it's a stat or a number. You know, let's say you're going to be discussing something about a particular industry. Then you know what? Just throwing some stat out there, or a question around a stat, or what the future looks like for that industry, or whatever it may be. Anything like that, again, will make sure that you're top of mind. So using your voice, being heard, makes you top of mind next time that meeting comes to you know, gather, or whatever it may be. So, and don't ever assume somebody knows more than you. Most people that are in the room and they're quiet, don't assume that they actually know what's being talked about, or that they know everything that's being discussed, because the majority of the time they don't. And so I think that's really important, because it becomes intimidating for people, thinking that you're the only one that doesn't know anything about the subject, and that's not true. Okay, so information is power. That's another one. If that's the only one you talk away, or like walk away from today, I'd be good with that too. All right, next one is about taking risks. So one of the things that I will highlight is the being, you know, learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's hard. It's I'm not saying it's easy. Listen, uncomfortable is never fun, right? When I'm bent over ready to throw up and feeling uncomfortable, that's just physically, let alone emotionally. It does pass, and you do get past that. And I think just always keeping that in mind, and learning to be okay in that uncomfortableness, because you will grow tenfold. You really will, if you can learn to sort of take risks and be in those uncomfortable positions. Okay, and then ask yourself, when you're feeling that way and you're uncomfortable or you're anxious about something, ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen? You know, when I went for that job interview, what is the worst thing that could happen? They could say no. They could say no. Okay, so then I move on, and I continue in my current role, right? Way back at the beginning of my career. So it's sort of like, in your mind, play that out. Say, what would happen? What could happen? And then you ask yourself, what is the probability of that happening? And the probability is probably pretty low. So you might as well go for it. Okay. And then, you know, take action. If you fail, it's okay. You learn. I think that's probably one of the things that, you know, you'll probably hear about failure from a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you're going to learn something. And as long as you have a takeaway, that you learn from a failure, listen, that's one of the best outcomes sometimes. Okay, so now, so taking risks. I just think that that's important to sort of help catapult you forward no matter which direction you're going to go. All right. And then the last one is confidence. And I think that confidence, listen, that is hard for people at every age. We're human beings. It's something that you evolve over time. It's not like you snap your fingers one day and all of a sudden you're like a super confident person. It happens over time. And so the more things you can expose yourself to, the more comfortable you get in various situations. But it has to, again, start with you personally. Like, believe you can. Like, envision envision you doing it successfully. If you can envision you doing it successfully, it's sort of like you feel like you've already been there and done that. So believe you can do it. And again, confidence, the more you use your voice, the more you actually put yourself out there, you start to build confidence. Even though it might not be at the forefront of your mind, it actually helps you build confidence so that in any situation, you're comfortable talking and sharing your opinion. And then one thing worth saying is when somebody is confident, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're competent. And being competent means you really know something, you really know your stuff. But what confidence does is it equals perceived competence. Not competence on its own, but perceived competence. So I'll give you a very quick story on this one. Early on in my career, we were combining two companies. We were doing a merger of two companies. And I was basically running through sort of organizing some of the integration, and I talked to a guy on the other side and I asked him a question and he answered so confidently. I mean, he gave me the answer and I was like, oh, okay, so that's the answer. And I go away and it sort of sends me down a certain path. And then after I'm in the detail and working a number of hours, I realized that the answer he gave me was not really, didn't seem correct. None of the other things lined up. So I went back to him and I said, can I understand a little bit more about why you said this, why you answered this way? And I showed him all of the work that I did. He goes, oh, yeah, you're right. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to pull my hair out because I spent all that time sort of going down another path because he said something. And he said it so confidently, I thought that he was competent in that area, but he wasn't. It was perceived competence. And so it's something where just because somebody says it with vigor and confidence doesn't necessarily mean it is absolutely true. Okay, so all right, and the last thing is practice. Anything you want to get good at, you need to practice. And listen, coming from sports, I think that's one thing for me is knowing, the more you practice, the better you get at it, right? Just like dance or basketball or track or whatever it may be, or the field of technology or the field of finance or whatever it may be that you really want to pursue. So confidence does matter. All right, so again, information's power, take risks, and confidence matters. I actually just really like this picture because it's like a warrior and it's something that I wanted to fit into my presentation somehow. All right, and so I've listed out sort of the 4 takeaways that I covered. So I have one more, and this is something that I think is really important, and it's hard to do. And a lot of people are still sort of seeking this at a later stage in life. So the more you pay attention to what you're good at, what you love, where your passion lies, it'll give you a much happier path, a much more fulfilling life in general. So do what you love what you do because you spend a majority of your time doing it. When you think about what your career is going to be, and you look at how much time you'll be at home versus how much time you'll be at the office or working, let's just call it working, because in this pandemic, we are at home, but you're still working. But I think that that's something that is really important to pay attention to that. So finance, business, technology, if you love that, I'm telling you, that is awesome. That is great because it's a male-dominated industry, and I promise you that there are the opportunities for female finance individuals, female business execs, female in technology. Those opportunities are truly endless. So, especially for women. So, but if you're not loving those areas, I want to share this with you. Finance, and just call it, understanding money, understanding the flow of money for any sort of business. And technology, which is really something that each and every one of us uses every single day in school, or we're on our phone, or we're ordering something online, or whatever it may be. We are constantly using technology. It's integrated into everything we do. And so finance, money, and tech, it's related to every single business out there in some way. So it's foundational. And it may not sound sexy, it may not sound fun, but it definitely can be. And so if you do find a love in those fields, you will be golden and you will be set up for success as long as as long as you're driven and you always want to, do well, you'll be awesome. If it is not your love or passion, what I'm going to just say to you today is find a way to actually pursue it in some way. Pursue finance, business, technology as a foundation. And then whatever else you decide to pursue, it's actually going to make that area of passion, that industry of passion, 10 times easier for you, because you're going to have this foundation that applies to every single business out there. And so I'll put it this way, it cannot hurt you, it can only help you. But remember how maybe your teacher or your fellow students would always say, either in math class or biology class or whatever it may be, I'm never going to use this in real life. Well, you will use money, you will use tech in real life every day, and you will use it in any career that you choose. So you'll never go wrong with pursuing finance or tech. So these are the 5 takeaways that I hope that you'll at least remember one of those, and just remember that opportunity is all around you. And I really, truly want to thank you for sharing your Saturday with me today. And I will turn it over, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you. So we have some questions in the chat. So we can read them off right now. So Zoe asked, how did you take advantage of various business-related opportunities in college?
That's a good question. So one of the things that I made sure that I did is I talked with my professors, because your professors are also sort of plugged into the community. And that is a great way to get exposure to maybe, just having an internship, or even if you can't, this is probably one of the best things that I see more now than I thought about when I was in college. But shadowing somebody, even if it's for an hour or 2 hours in a field you think you want to go into, is highly valuable, because you may go down a path that you think, oh, that's the area I want to go. And once you're exposed to it and you've already gotten your degree in it and you're living it and you go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And so having that opportunity, and talk to your parents, talk to your parents' friends, what they do. And really understand that if it is an industry that you think you're interested in, I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, they are willing to have you, take you in, go out for coffee, do whatever, and really, truly share their experiences and answer very honestly. So it's worth the exercise.
Thank you. And Sarah asked, what is it like being a woman in both business and fintech, and how does it impact your worldview of everything, and again, business, technology overall?
Yeah. And so being in male dominated industries is Here, I could probably stand here for hours and give you guys examples of sort of what I went through, but because if you go in with, I'm going to say you always want to be yourself, but also I'm going to call it thick skin, because most of the time, as long as you don't take things personally, because it's 100% of the time, it's really probably 99.9% of the time, it is not personal. And so the way that men interact, I'm sorry, but men and women are just wired differently. And as long as you keep that in mind, it will again, it sort of paves this way that some people end up getting tripped up on, because they get too, they take things more personally, and it is, how can I say it? It's something where it's not, it's definitely things that people, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but be just as tough and be willing to sort of stand there and give it back in any sort of conversation. And I think that's where my competitiveness really sort of played a role, because in sports, I'm not going to back down. And it's not a fight. It's you sort of add humor to any situation, and it's a really interesting interaction. So you see men in business, the way that they sort of jest and all of that. It's okay. You can talk about sports. You can talk about all the things that they talk about too. And being part of that conversation and being able to hold your own and have thick skin and not be offended by certain things, I think really goes a long way. Don't get me wrong. You never, ever, ever give up like sort of your morals around certain subjects. And that and I won't even touch that today, but that's okay. That's something that you make sure that your voice is heard on how you feel about things. But in other scenarios, it's just like you're hanging out with your friends that are women, right? So I hope that helps. It's sort of a vague response, but it hopefully helps you understand that, business is not personal.
Yeah, no, it was a great response, definitely insightful, and I know
Yes,
all of our viewers.
So a question from Muriel. She asks, did you know exactly what you wanted to do when you were in college? And if not, like, how did you decide on online trading?
Yeah, okay, so that's an awesome question. And I started to touch on it early on. I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I paid attention to what I was good at. And so I was good at numbers. I was good in accounting. And what I had found out from doing a little bit of research of what can I do in this field, right? And so one of the things was public accounting, and the plus for public accounting, because I didn't know really about trading in college, but public accounting, it allowed me to apply skills I was good at. And number two, it allowed me to be exposed to a number of different industries, because I'd be working on a lot of different clients. And so that way I could sort of have a window into that industry and sort of get a flavor of it. And that is where I was exposed. One of the clients, actually more than one of the clients, a number of clients I worked on were in the trading industry. And that's when I said, oh my God, that's the one I want. I experienced a number of other types of industries, and I was like, nope, this is the one I want to go into. So it was just about paying attention and really sort of doing some self-reflection too of what made me happy, what got me excited. And it was the energy and just sort of the sheer mass of notional value that's traded every day. So all of those things really sort of sparked it, and I was like, okay, that's the bucket I'm jumping into.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great response. So we have one final question for now from Ramona. She asked, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what's the biggest risk you've taken?
Oh, yeah. I would, you know what? I think I probably would say one of the biggest risks I've taken was probably at age 25, but I look at my whole life, and I've taken a number of them. And it's, boy, probably when I raised my hand at age 25 and said, Yeah, I'll be a CFO, because I promise you, and you guys, if you haven't read this, you should all read this. And I can also email it to you if you want me to. And this was a number of years ago. I want to say 2014. The Atlantic came out with an article, and it's called The Confidence Gap. And it talked about a female looking at whether she was going to apply for a job, and she didn't apply because she maybe had, call it 60 or 70% of the qualifications and didn't have 100%. But yet the guy who maybe had 50%, and I'm sort of paraphrasing because I don't remember what the numbers were, but obviously less, he did go for the job. And so it's sort of one of those things where she was probably equally as qualified as him, but in her mind, she said, I'm not going to do it because I don't check all the boxes. And on the flip side, the guy is going, oh, I'm going to go for it. I only have 50%, who cares? I'm going to go anyway. And so that is something that I look back now and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I jumped in. So don't sort of talk yourself out of it. It was, that was probably one of the biggest risks I took that gave me the biggest benefit. I guess I'll put it that way.
And yeah, what you were referencing was actually, it's called imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of women face it, feeling that they're not good enough because they don't have everything that a job requires. But men, they of course go out and they're like, it's fine, like I can do it. And like, that's something like as women, like we need to learn that we can do things even though we don't meet all the requirements. Okay, and then I have a few more questions from Anonymous. How can a recent grad and early career professional in a corporate finance rotational program make the most of the role?
Oh, that's a great question. Boy, I would say the way that you going through this rotational program, ask a lot of questions. And I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but ask a lot of questions and really dive deep. And your natural curiosity will come out, but what it will do, you will get the most out of that rotational program with each piece that you go through. Because you'll be asking questions probably to the partner or to the manager or to the lead on that. And they're going to remember you more than anybody else. And you will have made yourself top of mind by asking those questions. You will have shown that you're interested. You will have started to build a relationship and widen your network. Remember, I talked about networks and how important that is. Those people all of a sudden, and then go make sure that you actually connect with them on LinkedIn so that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you can actually reach out to them again and they're going to remember you. Okay. And so all of those things, by just getting involved and having two-way conversations and asking questions, I promise you that will pay you back in spades.
Thank you. And we actually have a LinkedIn and networking session later today, and we'll show the schedule again. Okay, we have another question from Saxon. What has been your biggest professional accomplishment and what did it teach you?
Oh, good. I'm going to actually tell you about a failure. Okay. You guys may not believe this, but I'm actually an introvert. I am actually someone who is, and I shouldn't say that. I'm probably an ambivert, which is sort of, between an extrovert and an introvert. But I definitely lean more towards an introvert, where I get my energy from sort of, let's say, not being in like big, wide, networking like sessions, even though I do that stuff all the time. So when it came to public speaking on a stage, and this was early on in my career, but I would say that I failed miserably on stage because I just got super nervous and I couldn't remember anything, and it was scary. And so for a few years after that, I said no every time to any sort of opportunity to get up on a stage. And so, boy, I'm trying to think at what point I sort of made that turn and got back out there, got back on the horse. And so and when I started getting back out there, it was that same concept of practice, 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 right? Because I have a lot to say. I want to say it. But as far as feeling comfortable, like putting it all out there, it took practice. It took practice doing it more often in different settings. It was that feeling of being uncomfortable, right? I'm telling you, it took me years to get there. But the earlier you start with that, the earlier you get out there and you start with that and you practice. So to me personally, my biggest accomplishment was actually that, because that also helped catapult me and put me in scenarios where I had opportunities to lead committees and be on boards and I was able to actually start doing so much more because of that, because I found my voice and I felt comfortable. Finally, took forever, I felt like, but I felt comfortable sort of jumping in and doing that. But the other thing too, I'll say is, listen, anytime we go through any sort of merger and acquisition, to me, so I've been through over 30 mergers and acquisitions in my career, meaning buying companies or being bought or starting a company or raising capital. And so all of those things, having accomplished 30 in 30 years, to me, it's sort of like each one of those is to me sort of like a trophy, because that's a big deal to be able to combine companies and try to make that successful. So that's my long-winded answer, and I gave you two.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. I think it's great that you kind of brought up failure, because a lot of people don't really mention that when they're talking about kind of their accomplishments. It looks like we have one final question from an anonymous attendee. They asked, what is one thing you'd like men to know about the female experience in business?
Oh, that is such a good question. Boy. Let's see. What would I like men to know about the female experience in business? I would say that being the competitive person that I am, I want them to know that we're smarter, we're harder working. No, it's one of those things where I want them to know that we have so much more to offer than we often have the chance to. And so the reason I say it that way is because I think a lot of men don't actually give women the credit. Again, it's just their wiring. It's sort of how they listen. It's the way that they're in tune. And so it's, so flat out, that's what I would actually say to them. But I'm going to give the other side of the answer too, is because a majority of men are in business, in tech, in finance, attaching to, one, by asking a lot of questions, by being interested, by bringing a few stats to the table, building those relationships, you will find some men that are willing to lock arms with you and help lift you up. So it's not just women, it's men too. It's both. You want to make sure you're networking and looking for those type of people, because there are men that absolutely positively will. I shared with you one of the examples, the partner I worked for at the very first company. He's still a dear friend today, and he helped give me opportunities, but I asked a ton of questions. And he was willing to do that. So he introduced me to a lot of people in his network. So he did believe in that. And I showed, but it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. You have to come to the table prepared and with information and with questions, and they'll see that. But I would definitely want to just make a blanket statement of, we have so much to offer, open the door, and I want a seat at the table.
Thank